Every 500 years, the world shifts. An empire rises, a church falls, or a way of life changes. We're coming to one of those times of change. While people argue about turning governments left or right, a large number of people are getting tired of the system as a whole for not doing what it's supposed to do and taking from the people it's supposed to help. And a system will be used as long as it does more good than it does damage. And the people are beginning to question whether or not large governmental systems are as useful as they once were. While people claim to be a part of global movements that can be lit on fire at the speed of the internet, what they're actually doing is fracturing into small tribes of people that focus on helping the ones closest to them instead of national and global interests. We believed that we were moving towards a globalized world. The past 100 years encouraged sameness, where clothing styles, musical genres, and worldviews moved closer and closer together. But the reality is that we're not alike. People are different, and it's fine if you allow them to be so. But the bigger countries get, the less people feel they have the right to independent thought, and the more jealous they become of the few that rise above. Not to mention that large governments created incredible wealth that leaders got lazy with until their ruling became inept, and now the structures are falling apart. So as the large-scale organizations split, people are rediscovering their individuality and personal tastes. They're all becoming less concerned about the suffering of the people they can't see and more concerned with their own problems. Wars are shifting from world wars to smaller battles, criminal factions fighting one another and warring states. This probably sounds bad to a modern person, like a descent into the Dark Ages. But the Dark Ages are a wildly misunderstood period. The Dark Ages came about after the Roman Empire. They're called the Dark Ages because of the lack of education, history, the terrible things that happened, and particularly the lack of records kept during that time. The Roman Empire was considered to be the height of glory and the Dark Ages to be a fall from grace. But the Roman Empire was good for a minority. The rest were slaves. This advantage of resources gave the Romans a massive amount of extra time and energy to put forth the artistic and engineering wonders that we still marvel at today. And it gave the academic elites more time to document the events of that age. They also had their own type of morality and work ethic that enabled them to do those great things. Every era comes with good and bad. The Romans were a great society. But most people weren't Roman, and those people suffered. During the fall of the empire, the Western world went through a shift. Massive centralized land ownership and military power fell away, and without the oppressive taxation enforced by the Roman Empire, it became possible for individual farmers to make a living again. The number of people living a decent life at the beginning of the Dark Ages increased. They just didn't care about making art that would last 1,000 years, or bridges, wars, or history books. They were busy living. Over time, the farms got bigger under the guidance of the church, consolidating ownership as taxes once again went up. The church was initially helpful, making sure that important agricultural information was kept alive and taught, but grew too big as the clergy became greedy. This resulted in the peasant-vassal relationships that were much like the slavery at the end of the Roman Empire. But the initial descent into the Dark Ages wasn't a descent for a lot of people. It was a liberation, where the authority of the time fell apart and the individuals had the chance to take on responsibility for themselves. History tends to move in cycles between a large-scale and small-scale focus. Neither are bad, both come with terrible and wonderful things, and hopefully we can live the cycle a bit better each time around. And I believe if we're aware of the changes occurring, we can create opportunities and thrive. Right now, we're moving towards a smaller scale focus, much like after the fall of the Roman Empire. But we're doing it this time around with better tools. Those tools are the technology we have today that didn't exist back then. The average person today has more power and information in their pocket in the shape of a cell phone than a king had 1,000 years ago. And while a declining country today might lose its infrastructure, someone with ambition and work ethic can look up how to build new bridges and sewage systems online and get it done if they're willing to make it happen. While supply lines are falling apart, we can still communicate with others anywhere in the world, and this makes it possible for trade routes to continue no matter how dark times may get. The technology of our time is available to be used by anyone with the work ethic to get it done. And there are often amazing individuals that choose to make the world better even when everything is falling apart around them. The power of large governments is crumbling, and with it, there will be a lot of difficult times ahead as they struggle to keep their power. But thankfully, they aren't as capable of causing damage as they once were, because their usefulness has been replaced by the technology that was born during their era. As people are becoming interested in their own communities, it's become difficult for oppressive governments to stop them, and possible for people to benefit from large-scale digital systems that serve the purpose governments were designed to fulfill. Governments, as they are today, were set up to enable economic systems, but they historically overplay their hand and become a burden on the people they're meant to care for. The Roman Empire, at its end, taxed citizens to the point of bankruptcy and starvation. The Church, at the end of its reign, required massive donations and devotion to the point that it ruined people's lives. And now taxes are rising again, along with a more misleading form of tax, inflation. Some organizations have the power to print money, to spend more, while others can't. And the money the powerless hold decreases in value every time that happens. It's a form of taxation that's invisible, anonymous, hard to understand, and easy to deny. But the decentralization of money creates wealth that governments will find difficult to confiscate. So as governments have gotten bigger, asked their people for more taxes, and begun to control the very thing they were tasked with enabling, economic freedom, new technology has come about that has many of the features governments were supposed to provide, and governments can't control it. Money is an important factor in this. The advent of Bitcoin and other competing technologies might be the only thing that could stop global controls and corruption over time. Central bank digital currencies aren't far behind, and they can enable almost infinite control over a citizen's economic rights. But if Bitcoin continues to be more useful, it'll continue to win, and the power of state-controlled money will continue to fall. And many other technologies have changed access to resources, online communication, and freedom of information. These are all things the government 200 to 500 years ago were intended to help with in some way. It's getting easier to distribute resources and information using modern technology. So the reasons for large-scale movements that were brought together to enable those things are becoming irrelevant. This is happening, and it's not something that should be stopped, as it's a type of progress that has many positive implications for the future. But the cost is the current way of life. The cost is that many people will not make the transition. They'll be confused why a government can't take care of them when the rest of the world has already begun living without the need for that same government. There will be invisible people, ones who are lost in the churn of the changing times, others who've adapted and are unaware of the ones who fell behind. Not out of malice, they just moved on while others didn't. But there will also be incredible opportunities. And one of those opportunities will be to help those invisible people, to educate the people who need it. Education will be the most important piece for everyone. Not mass education, but difficult, individual education that people volunteered to take on for themselves, and by the ones that see the effort being made and want to help. To the people willing to learn something new, the world would be one open door after another, because of how easy it is to gather information and use it to gather resources. The people who do so will win, and the people who don't will be left behind, very confused why they can't wake up and work at the same job they did yesterday. Another piece of the puzzle will be to understand the shifts of order and chaos that happen at a time like this. The need for a balance between order and chaos never goes away. Humans can't survive without one or the other, and large-scale governments are a manifestation of order. When order is available on a large scale, society can be chaotic and survive. But as those organizations get weaker, the benevolent strength of order can no longer come from an external source. People are already craving and must embrace a more personal sense of order as that external source fades. The people who own their responsibilities and commit to people, ideas, and lifestyles will have a massive advantage as the world around them becomes more chaotic. There is only so much chaos a person can handle, and in times of chaos, the people unwilling to establish order get overwhelmed, and the ones who do establish order, but remain willing to dance with the changing times, are inspired by the chaos, innovate, and provide stability to the people around them who are less fortunate, and derive profit and meaning from the experience. Be the person who can help. As times start to change, be the person who has something to offer to help weather the storm, and you'll win. And you will win by making the world a better place. The people that are willing to educate themselves, help others, create order, and dance with chaos are the ones who will come out ahead. I recommend you be one of them.